Hi, I'm Brooke Gill, Director of Family Engagement for the Pritchard Committee.
And I'm Laura Beard, the Family Engagement Coordinator at the Pritchard Committee.
We will be your co-trainers today for the Kentucky Family and School Partnership 101 module. This is part 1 of 2. Did you know that Kentucky is one of 12 states to receive the U.S. Department of Education statewide Family Engagement Center grant? We operate under the name Kentucky Collaborative Families and Schools, which is a network of families, educators, and community partners. We meet monthly, and we also have subcommittees that work on different projects. All are focused on increasing open communication, learning opportunities, and shared decision-making power across the Kentucky education system. We are founded on the belief that high quality, equitable, and inclusive education is our shared responsibility. Families, schools, and communities all play a role.
At the Pritchard Committee, we engage parents through our Commonwealth Institute for Parent Leadership. We also have partners from the National Center for Families Learning and their family literacy model. Learning Grove in Northern Kentucky is a grant partner focused on early learning centers and English language learners. And our folks at Berea College, who are really working to increase family engagement in their 30 plus schools in that area. And then our partners at the Kentucky Department of Education, who have been a tremendous support for the development of this training module and the supporting resources.
All right, so we're going to both be kind of bouncing back and forth with different sections of this training. So you'll see Laura in a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and get us started. The learning objectives for this module are 1, gain a deeper understanding about the importance of family and school partnerships. 2, examine core beliefs about family and school partnerships. And 3, you're going to learn some really great concrete strategies to increase family engagement in your classroom and school. Recommended readings and references. Our 2 favorite books and widely popular with teachers and families are Beyond the Bake Sale and Powerful Partnerships. Highly recommend that you order those 2 books. And if you're familiar with them, then you'll see a lot of concepts and examples that are pulled from these. Dr. Karen Mapp, who was an author on Beyond the Bake Sale and the primary author for Powerful Partnerships, is also the co-founder and developer of the Dual Capacity Building Framework. All of Kentucky's work is based on this framework. It is also the U.S. Department of Education framework for family engagement. You can learn about that at dualcapacity.org. We cover that in more detail in part 2 of this training. And finally, the Kentucky Family and School Partnership Guide, your one-stop shop for all things family engagement in Kentucky. It's officially released on November 15th, 2021. 10 tools you'll leave with today. If we heard anything loud and clear from families and educators before we built this training, it was we need more tools. So we've packed this thing with lots of great tools that you can take and use after the training. Video examples, quotable definitions and research highlights, DeHaab's story, short article on redefining how we think about family engagement, 5 different roles families can play to get us out of the mindset that there can only be in leadership roles and parent-teacher conferences, places where to start. So you're excited, you want to do this, but it just seems overwhelming to dig in. So we're going to give you some where to start strategies. This also includes the 11 goalpost strategies, which are broken down by the months. We'll look at 5 objectives for effective family engagement to help frame how you think about it on a school level. A quick school self-reflection tool that you can use. If you're doing this in person or live, we'll also have a piece about an action item and creating a new connection. And then the last thing is a link and an assignment to then take all of this new knowledge and complete a school self-assessment. Don't worry, you don't have to be an expert on all 10 of these, but just know that you will leave today with these tools in your toolbox. You really need to have the Kentucky Family and School Partnership Learning Packet handy. I really prefer it printed so that I can take notes as I go. If you're going to do it online, you don't have access to a printer or you just prefer to do things on the computer, 2 monitors works a lot better so that you can watch the video and also have your learning packet up. If that's not an option, then I recommend kind of hearing my voice in the background and making the packet what you're looking at during the training. So pause this webinar now if you do not have your learning packet, and download it and be ready to record. Now we're going to watch a video that really gives us a good vision of what family engagement could look like. So give me a second while I share my sound. If you're in a middle or high school, you may feel that this really is targeted towards younger children in an elementary school, but I challenge you to think about a lot of the strategies that they share in this video and how they are very applicable to middle and high school. At the end, they also reference for this family what it feels like when they do reach high school. So it's important to consider, if you're working with middle and high school families, what their experience may have been in elementary and how that impacts their willingness to engage with you as a middle or high school professional. It's 5 minutes, so get comfortable, but it's really good.
As we work to help every child succeed and to close gaps in student achievement, we often assume school is the main place that learning is going to happen. Take Esma. It used to seem to her family and her educators that Esma is always at school. Not true, it turns out. Esma and other students actually spend 82% of their waking hours at home or in their community. All those weekends, weeknights, and breaks add up. When they realized that, the educators in Esma's school district decided to work harder on making the most of the biggest partner in her learning life, her family. This can look different in every school, but for Esma's teacher, it means instead of spending his time arranging a traditional open house, he organizes grade-level parent meetings. Here, Esma's family saw data on how the class is doing in math, reading, social and emotional learning. They practiced new ways to help Esma at home and set goals for how they'll help her improve. Everyone learned from each other as the group talked about how to help the students. Also, near the start of the school year, some staff from Esma's school visited her home. They looked for the assets her family members can bring to the educational process. They learned about their languages, their culture, their lives, their world. Grandpa offered to be a resource for other English learner families, and the school also listened and learned from the family's perspective on Esma's needs. They learned how Mom helps her calm down and focus. This kind of family engagement also makes it easier for the district to develop individualized education programs for students, including those in special education. The foundation is already there for families to engage in their students' academic and career planning too, making that more effective. Throughout the year, the family can attend workshops at the school on things like mental health, homework, or career exploration. Esma's mom saw those meetings on a poster in her work break room, and now she's inviting other parent friends to go with her. Esma's school district works with local businesses, places of worship, the public library, and other partners to reach students and families where they're already spending time. The school provides information frequently in a variety of ways so they can reach every family. Text messages are offered in the most common languages of local families. Esma's family gets photos from her teacher so they know what she's doing during the day. Communication between the school and the family is a group effort, focused on helping Esma achieve her learning goals. When Esma wasn't sure what to do on a science assignment, her family knew to contact the teacher for a little clarification. Educators take a positive approach as they look for solutions to any challenges experienced on either side. They're always looking for the family's strengths. Also, when Mom mentions that Esma has trouble making friends, the teacher knows to refer her to the school counselor. The counselor then helps the family join a local Boys and Girls Club with lots of activities for Esma. The teacher knew to do this because the school counselor led staff trainings on resources available in the community and how to help families access them. There's no danger of a family like Esma's ever feeling like an occasional onlooker. The school knows what families have to offer, and the family knows what's going on in the classroom and how to support it. They feel they are active and regular collaborators and decision makers. The district gives families opportunities to learn how to help children succeed at each level of the school system and to serve on school groups. At school gatherings, Esma's adult stepsister and close next-door neighbor also feel included in the community. Staff at the school are trained to be as inclusive as possible, welcoming as learning partners anyone who cares about the child. Esma's school has moved from parent involvement to family engagement. Not surprisingly, engaged families help students learn better. Staff members like their jobs better. Everyone wins. This is backed up by over 40 years of research. Students with engaged families, no matter their income, background, or culture, are more likely to do well in school, enroll in ambitious courses, graduate, and go on to post-secondary education. They also have stronger social skills and fewer disciplinary issues. So how do we make it happen? First, we work to make the shift across an entire school district. Sure, at the elementary level, Esma's classroom teacher is the main person her family interacts with at school, but as she gets older and her schooling more complex, collaboration is definitely bigger than one person. Really, all along the way, the family's interactions with pretty much everyone in connection with the school, from office staff to after-school staff, from bus drivers to principals, will need to be positive for them to truly feel welcomed. So it's a clear expectation in the district. Every employee has a role in helping every family feel connected to their child's learning, no matter what building or classroom that child attends. In Esma's district, a broad team that included school psychologists, social workers, counselors, families, general and special educators, and after-school program staff helped everyone in the school take family engagement to this next level in a way that works for their community. It worked. Esma's family feels like a valued member of the team. Esma, her family, and her educators feel confident that she is learning and happy at school. We have more information about how schools and families can effectively engage with each other around students' learning on our website.
What if family engagement could look like that for your school? I want you to take a moment and open your learning packet and go to page 2. It's the first prompt in your learning packet. What could family engagement look like? What stood out to you in this video? If you were defining family engagement from this video, what keywords would come to mind? So pause this video now and write some idea and reflections in the space provided on your learning packet.
Some example definitions for family engagement from our national partners. Family engagement is a shared responsibility in which school and other community agencies and organizations are committed to reaching out to engage families in meaningful ways, and in which families are committed to actively supporting their children's learning and development. From another statewide family engagement center in Connecticut, family engagement is a full, equal, and equitable partnership among families, educators, and community partners to promote children's learning and development from birth through college and career. And then from the National PTA, transformative family engagement is a shared effort of families, schools, and community leaders to advance programs, practices, and policies that empower every parent to make their child's potential a reality. And so as you look at these 3 definitions, I hope that some words really stand out. To me, I see things like meaningful. We have to engage in meaningful ways, and it is a shared responsibility. So it's not just a responsibility between family and school, but we also have our community that we need to consider as a partner in this work. And I think what's really evident throughout the definitions is this end goal of seeing our children reach their potential and recognizing how this engagement really does link to the learning and to the success, as we talk about in our engagement module, knowing that ultimately we're working together so that we can improve the learning and development for our children. Kentucky Family Engagement. So our definition with our Kentucky Collaborative is that engagement really is a productive, equitable, and inclusive partnership among families, educators, and the community to promote children's learning and development from birth through college and career and across home, school, and community settings. So you can see that we really took those commonalities in some of our definitions that we have seen as examples and really worked with our group to make sure that our definition included those things that we felt were common. KDE also defines engagement as family, school, and community partnerships that are about building active reciprocal relationships in which school, family, and community agencies and organizations engage in meaningful and culturally appropriate collaboration to improve student outcomes. We will be using a lot of interchangeable terms throughout the engagement module and throughout our resources. So just want to highlight those below. You may see that it references family and school partnership from time to time, family engagement, family, school, and community partnership, or family, school, and community engagement, and then parent involvement, which is used most frequently in the Kentucky regulations. So did you know, and this is a quote from the New Wave of Evidence, and I think it is really powerful, and so I want to spend a little bit of time here. But students with involved parents, no matter what their income or background, were more likely to earn higher grades and test scores and enroll in higher level programs, be promoted, pass their classes, and earn credits, attend school regularly, have better social skills, show improved behavior, and adapt well to school, and then graduate and go on to post-secondary education. And so this meta-analysis of family engagement research really found that these bullet points listed here were common. These were themes that came out of the research. And so it's a really great resource, the New Wave of Evidence. And I think this is at the crux of what we do. And so if we are really wanting to make the case for why family engagement is so important and we should spend time engaging with families, this is it. This is it right here. This is what we're ultimately hoping that we can get from our engagement strategies, is that our students who have involved parents are really excelling, and the involvement of their parents really makes that difference. Schools that had strong ties to families and the community were 4 times more likely to make significant gains in reading and math. And that's huge. I mean, when we think about these links to learning, and we know that that's what gets the attention of folks, we have to refer back to this research and understand that we're not just doing family engagement because it's the right thing to do or it's the fun thing to do, hosting activities for families to engage, but because it really does push the needle on student success. According to a national survey of teachers in the US, engaging families is the #1 area where teachers feel least prepared and represents their greatest challenge. So I want to take a pause here for a minute, and I want you to really reflect back to your experience in teacher prep courses, to your college days, when you're thinking about all of the resources and content you were learning about becoming a teacher or educator or working in a school building, or even as a family, and thinking about, you know, how you're going to interact with the school. Like, was there anything out there that really gave you that information? Did you have teacher prep courses that were on family engagement? Do families getting ready to enroll their children into public school, do they really get kind of a deep dive into the information on how to engage and prepare for meetings with teachers and educators? I mean, what information is out there that's building this dual capacity framework? And if you're like many of the people who take this training, you're probably thinking, there's not a lot. We've had a lot of folks who have said, or educators who have said there was really none. It maybe was talked about, it was glanced over, and in some instances it was just never brought up. But if it's the #1 area where teachers feel least prepared, then that tells us that we need to do a better job. And so our Kentucky Collaborative has been working on this issue in collaboration with higher education, and it's definitely on our to-do list, is to really, dive deep into this and see how we can help teachers and parents feel more prepared for that relationship that they're going to be building, for those K-12 years. And we need more information about how to make that happen. Achievement for All focuses on collaborative, structured conversations between teachers and parents, targeted on students' reading and math skills. In a pilot cohort totaling 454 schools, special needs students not only made gains above the national average, but surpassed gains for students without special needs. And I think that's huge because when we look at the achievement gap and we look at students who may require an IEP or 504, or who are, receiving intervention services, just that collaboration that the parents and teachers have. And I'm going to even throw in there the community partners. Maybe it's the therapists, maybe it's the interventionists who are outside of the school. If they're working together for the student, these gains are going to be seen. And I think that that is really important to consider in this particular research, that the 454 schools, that's a lot of schools, and they saw these gains for students. So we're going to pause for a little bit, and I'm going to have you open up to your training packet. We're going to be down at the bottom of page 2. And there's a question there for you, and I want you to think about this. Have you experienced this research to be true in your work with families and/or teachers? So if you're a family member, like kind of think about what you know about the importance of family engagement in public education. And if you're a teacher, this is a chance for you to jot down your experiences with what did family engagement look like before you even entered the classroom? What were your preconceived ideas? What were your thoughts around engaging with families? And you can take time to pause the video here and write those down on a separate sheet of paper or in your training packet.
It's time to redefine family and community engagement. We are going to read DeHaab's story. The article is linked in your learning packet on page 3, at the top of page 3. I want you to take a moment to read DeHaab's story. So pause me and read it and then come back. Can you relate to DeHaab's story from your own childhood? I'll share that when I read this article, it really resonated with me because my mom worked and didn't attend the bake sales and didn't attend many of the school functions, and sometimes didn't attend a parent-teacher conference if she didn't think that she needed to or had any questions for the teacher. She also felt like if I was having issues at school, I needed to learn how to advocate for myself. And so she would coach me and tell me how to handle the situation, but she wouldn't personally go to the teacher. So when I read DeHaab's story, I thought, I wonder if my teachers had similar feelings about me. Did they think that my family wasn't engaged in my education? So I want you to reflect on your own childhood and what family engagement looked like in your house and how much you can or maybe cannot relate to DeHaab's story, but any reflections that you might have pulled from reading this story. There's also a space about why does this story matter? Why did we include this story in this introductory training for family engagement? Pause me now and record some reflections. This article is important because there's many roles that families can play, and we have to understand as educators and family members that there's different needs for each of these roles. If you're an educator, look at these 5 roles and consider how you could support families in these roles more effectively. When you think about DeHaab's family, how much could teachers have supported them, helping them get those textbooks, giving them more learning at home strategies, or supporting them and telling them what great monitors and communicators, supporters and guides and advocates they're being for their children, rather than maybe making them feel guilty for the time they weren't in the school building. If you're a family member and you work a lot, but you care deeply, think about the different roles that you could play in your child's school and with their education. It doesn't have to happen in the school building. There are other ways that you can be engaged and a partner in your child's education beyond the typical roles of volunteerism. I want you to pause the video here in a minute and pick one of these 5 roles. If you're an educator or administrator, think of how you could be more effective in supporting this role for families. If you're a family, think about questions you may ask of your educators to make you more effective in that role. For example, if I decided that supporting learning at home is really my niche, I've got a kindergartner and a 4th grader, and I do feel guilty that I don't participate in this school as much as I think I should. But I do want to support their learning at home. Especially through COVID, I learned that I need some more tools in my toolbox for teaching my kids strategies for learning math, for example. So I would like to ask my teacher for more learning at home strategies to support their math skills. Like, are there certain card games we could be playing? Are there some easy, cheap materials maybe that I can pick up at the dollar store that make for some fun games? So that's one way that I could reach out to the school and let them know, this is the role I want to play. Can you help me? If I was an educator, I might look at learning at home, supporting learning at home role for families and think, when I do have the opportunity to talk to them or when I am sharing information, it would be really easy for me to upload a video or simply write a paragraph about a learning at home idea that would support what we're learning in the classroom. So please pause this video and take a moment to pick one of these 5 roles and how you could support that role better. Pause me now. If you're a visual learner, this iceberg metaphor might work for you. Thinking about families' roles being more diverse than attending school events, answering phone calls from the schools, advocating for their child with school staff, or signing off on paperwork. What are some of the ways that families are probably or could be supporting their child in different roles that you don't see? If they're a middle school or high school student, are they discussing high expectations with their child? They may not be attending school events because middle and high schoolers are, you're forbidden to be seen on campus, but they may at home be talking to them about the expectation for a post-secondary, a college or career goal. And if they don't really know how to discuss that with their kid, are we helping them with those conversation starters? What do you want to be when you grow up type of conversations? Are they talking with students about their coursework? So instead of saying, how was your day? What did you learn? Are we telling families, hey, they're reading this book right now in their 6th grade history class. We're learning about this. And here's 3, prompts that you could ask at dinner tonight to get them talking about what we're going through. Helping students connect to extracurriculars. This is where we see a lot of our middle school and high school engagement, not so much elementary, but families really feeling connected to their kids' education through the extracurricular activities. So sometimes it's important to think about, where are families showing up and how can we be more involved and bring some of their education materials into those environments. So getting creative, checking in to see how their child is doing or feeling. So families may be really plugged into their social emotional skills. And so having that knowledge that they may need some more materials, or they may know their child's ways that they calm down. We saw in that Esma video that her mom knows how to calm her down. So if you're her teacher and you're struggling with her social emotional needs, that is a way you could partner with the family. They have information that you might need, and you have information that they could use. So this iceberg metaphor really speaks to me because we only sometimes have time to see what's above that iceberg. And it does take a little digging to understand maybe some deeper needs and roles.
So what does this mean? When we think about improving family engagement, we have to go beyond how we improve our family events and newsletters. Instead, we need to put our time and energy into strategies that help staff get to know families. so that we can build trusting relationships between families and teachers. So how do we do it? Well, from a recent presentation from Carnegie and Harvard, we really resonated with this takeaway. What we do is we actually sit down and talk to families, making the time to cultivate those relationships, get to know the families, because in getting to know the families, we understand the unique needs that the child may have, and that will really help that student if we have that relationship with the parent. Figure out how every school staff can be paired with students so that every student is covered. So many lessons have been learned from the previous school year and the spring before. As we went into COVID, there were so many children that were lost in our education system. And had we had those relationships in place with parents, it would have been much easier to connect. That trust would be there, and we wouldn't have been scrambling to find the students. We would have had that connection already. So maybe look at a student family anonymous survey. Can you name a school staff person you can reach out to if you have questions or concerns? So that can be one of your questions on your survey. Have you built a trusting relationship with someone that works at the school and you feel comfortable talking to them? And then another one would be for families on a scale of 1 to 5, how connected do you feel to your child's teacher and other school staff? So if you just need to take some time to kind of check that pulse for your school and find out from students and families what the connection feels like. Maybe on your end, the connection feels really good. You feel like parents know how to access staff. You feel like students are really connected to the school staff. But doing an anonymous survey, if you don't already do one, can be really eye-opening to see exactly what people are saying they need or their concerns are around, who to contact. A lot of my friends during during COVID felt disconnected, and they were teacher friends and they were also parent friends, and so they felt disconnected from how do I reach these parents. And then parents felt very disconnected between, I'm not really good at this virtual learning stuff, and we're not navigating this in the same way, and I don't know how to reach out. Is text okay? Is it okay for me to call them on their home phone? Like, what are those expectations, and how can we really figure out this relationship and make sure that every student has that person? A few great places to start if you're not already doing some of these. And the first one here I just want to highlight is a really great activity that we heard about, but index cards with student names on tables. So imagine that you have the cafeteria tables full of index cards for students in the school, and you take all of the staff connected to the school. And so that's support staff, that can be your bus drivers and transportation staff, that can be your nutrition services staff, but everyone who's connected to the school takes a certain amount of index cards. And so this really, creates that smaller group feel because a lot of times our homeroom teachers have multiple classes during the day. And it's just good to have kids from different, grade levels. And if you have those index cards kind of spread out and they're very random, but making sure that every index card is picked up by someone connected to the school, then that individual will intentionally make a connection to those students. May require a little bit of work to get their information or find out where they can find them during the day, but really would help to build those relationships with students in the school. And I think it's a really, really cool idea. And I plan to share that with my son who's going to be a first-year teacher. Homeroom teachers, of course, have always been a connect. It's one of the reasons we have homeroom. It's kind of like home base. So how can we make sure that homeroom teachers have the time in their schedule to really think about building relationships with their students? What fun things, what one-on-one time with each student can we build into our time together so that we can make that happen? Host trainings for all school staff on working with families to expand outside of teaching staff. So if we have PD that's really focused on teachers, are we including all staff in PD around family engagement? Are we making sure that they understand they're part of the school family and therefore should be in that relationship building with teaching staff? Host an honest conversation with a few family focus groups from diverse roles and grade levels. What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we continue doing? And a lot of times we get the same families to attend focus groups. And so really being aware and intentional in getting families who maybe you don't hear from on a regular basis. Maybe use an incentive, a gift card, a meal, something to bring them into the focus group, but really have that opportunity to ask, what are we doing that is really working? What are we doing that you feel like we really need to stop? And then are we doing anything right? Are we doing anything that you feel like really helps build that relationship with the school? Welcoming phone calls or even home visits and now Zoom visits with families. So getting to know a family a little bit more personal with that welcoming phone call or even visiting them at home if that's an option. And now really Zoom is kind of become an option for everybody. And so thinking about ways to have that personal one-on-one time with families is a lot different than your traditional parent and teacher conference because this is just really informal. Just reaching out, saying hi, introducing yourself, giving them a chance to introduce themselves and their student. And then, maybe they can drop a couple of tidbits about their student and that would really be helpful as you're thinking about ways to connect with them at school. We really also want to be rethinking back to school nights. There's a lot that people try to cram into just a couple of hours in the evening, and so many families are interested in meeting with the teacher, talking about their child's needs. And so this combination of welcoming phone calls, home visits, and back to school nights really needs to be connected with the purpose of how do we get that one-on-one time for the family. And so a really great example that I've heard about recently is kind of an all-day event where families kind of go in and they choose their time slot that they're going to come in, similar to a parent-teacher conference, but the back-to-school event happens all day. And I know that that's a lot of time at the front end of the school to think about fitting that in, but for working families and families with different schedules, thinking about how we can put together something that doesn't just get crammed into 2 hours in one evening and gives families options to make those appointments is a really great first step at rethinking back to school nights. And with anything that we do, as we're starting to build those relationships, we have to do those with families and teachers and not two. So what we think might be a great idea might not be a good idea in the eyes of our fellow teachers or may not be a good idea with families. So really that going back to that focus group, what do we start doing? What do we stop doing? And what do we continue doing?
Well, immediately after the home visit, I was then invited to a back to school night they were having in Stanton. They gave me a little flyer. I was like, well, we're having a back to school night. It's from this time to this time. Bring the kids, like a meet and greet the teachers and everyone that was going to be there. But one thing I can say about, Stanton period is that it is constant communication, something I never had, something I completely enjoy. And it's not just negative communication, it's constant positive communication. I can be here at home, at work, anywhere, and one of my teachers will send me a text. or I used to love it, Miss Lucas would send pictures. Take pictures of them doing classwork, and you'll see, look how my Tanae, well, I call her Bird. The school calls her Bird, which I love because it's like a community. They adopted her nickname. So she would send me a text like, look at Bird. She's having a wonderful day today, and she's doing good. But in saying that, that allowed me to hear. It put a trust. I put a trust in Miss Lucas for doing that. So no matter what she said, how she had to say it, what the information is, it made it easier for me to receive it from her, because she had built this communication, this trust that I never had. You know, so I tell people now, friendship. You know what I'm saying? We're not friends to talk every single day, but she's a person that I will always hold in a high regard. She will always have my respect. I really respect Miss Lucas, and I value her so much, because not just her, but all the teachers, but like she was the first one to really extend herself to me. And I would get the text, and then one day Tanae had a bad day, and she called me, and I was expecting to hear something good. Oh, you know, she got good on her test, so she did read. And she was like, well, we had a bit of an issue today. I'm like, for real? What happened? Well, you know, Tanae did X, Y, and Z. And I didn't get defensive. I didn't get, well, what did you do? Or what did I actually sat back and I listened. And I received the information. You know, and I processed the information. For me, that was something different, because at that point in time, I felt it like, why am I getting mad? Because normally when you call me on the phone and you telling me something about my child did this, I'm naturally on the defense, like, well, what did you do to make my child do this? Or who was messing with her in class? Because my baby's a good baby. But in this time, it was different. And I don't know if it's because of the positive, you know, feedback she gives me every day, the friendship we brought. It just made, when she was telling me what was going on, I took a breath, I stopped, and I listened. You know, and then I was like, we actually got to a place where we worked together. I said, well, you know what, since she's having a bad day, you know, can you put her on the phone? You know, and I spoke with her on the phone, and I let her know that me and Miss Lucas are working together. We are a team, you know, and if she asks you to do something, you need to treat it as if mommy is asking you to do something. So if she asks you to sit down, you need to sit down. And there was no more problems with Tanae.
So hopefully that video really resonated with you when it comes to this idea of building a relationship and getting that trust on the back end, and thinking about in the video when she says she wasn't defensive when the teacher called, because she does have that trusting relationship. So she sat back and listened and really took in what the teacher had to say, instead of jumping to kind of a defense for her student. And so thinking about these strategies to engage with families, we come to these 4 core beliefs about families. And this comes directly from Beyond the Bake Sale, which was referenced at the beginning of the training as a great resource to your family engagement work. But the first one is, all families have dreams for their children and want the best for them. The second is, all families have the capacity to support their children's learning. The third one is, families and school staff are equal partners. And number 4, the responsibility for cultivating and sustaining partnerships among school, home, and community rests primarily with school staff, especially the school leaders. So just to kind of digest these 4 core beliefs, we're going to have you do a little assignment. And what I'm going to ask you to do is circle the belief that resonates with you the most. So what belief do you really hold on to? This is a belief that you hold and is a part of your work. And then I want you to think about a belief that maybe you're challenged by, and I want you to star that one. Then take some time to consider the impact that differences in race, class, and culture among families and teachers has on these beliefs. So if you're challenged by one of these beliefs, maybe why are you challenged by this belief? What have you seen in your work that maybe tells you something differently, or maybe you just need to really reflect on it. Maybe you haven't thought about it before. So this is a place in the training where we're going to ask you to stop the video and turn to your packet, and under the 4 core beliefs, we're going to ask you to circle and star. and then jot down some ideas that you have around this particular slide.
What should a school focus on? There's 5 objectives that we've outlined in the Kentucky School Self-Assessment. And you're going to do the school self-assessment as your next step following this training, or it's recommended as a next step. But I do want to share with you these 5 objectives because they might help you frame how you want to go about your family engagement work. First, relationships. If that hasn't been loud and clear, I don't know what has. Meaningful relationships and conversations with families. Two-way communication, which pretty much follows along with relationships, but we have to get away from the information sharing and giving to families and hoping they find a way to use that information to support their child, but instead engaging in two-way communication. So once again, we can find what role that family is going to play, what their needs are, and also getting information from the family that will help us educate their child. We need to ensure that anytime we are having contact with families that we're linking it to students' learning. So if we are having events at the school or we're having newsletters go home to families, that we're always linking it to learning. In the middle and high school arena, you may think about emails to families quarterly that just says, hey, I'm the math teacher. Here's the 4 things that we're going to be learning over the next couple months. Here's a couple ways that you could have your child kind of working on this at home beyond homework. They may teach the parent how to do that math, right? Like many of us families, I mean, my child's in 4th grade and I'm already starting to get a little nervous about where this math is going. But a cool way I could support him the older he gets is for him to show me how you do this math problem. I heard from your teacher by email that this is what you guys are learning right now. Like, show me what that looks like. Maybe offer extra credit if the parent emails back and says, he did this, he, showed me what he's learning in class right now with calculus. Then the student gets 1 point extra credit. So just helping the students and the families engage in learning conversations can be discussion topics. It can also be a shared learning experience where the student is teaching the parent. We also want to make sure, going back to the very beginning of this training, that each student is identified with some adult in the building, some adult in the school building, whether it's their homeroom teacher, it could be janitorial staff, it could be some after school staff, bringing them in, but there's someone in that school who knows that student's name and knows at least something about a family member or another adult who supports that child's education. Who do they go home to? Do we know that about every student in our classroom? And are we utilizing all the staff in the building to make sure that we have that information? And community partnership. We'll get a little bit more into how community partners can really expand the capacity of your school. So this has been people's favorite activity with this training. So I hope that you enjoy it too. On page 6 of your learning packet, you'll see 4 versions of family school partnerships. This is time to give yourself a little assessment and see how you're doing. Just a quick tool to wrap your mind around what it looks like to have a true partnership school. We find that some folks think that they're a partnership school, and after taking this assessment, find out that they're actually a come if we call school, which is the easiest kind of niche to fall into and get really comfortable there and not continuing to improve your family engagement practices so that you are more of a partnership school. So take about 5-10 minutes or however long you need and walk through this self-assessment. You'll check mark 1 per row, and then at the end, whichever column you have most check marks in, that's really where you're falling as a baseline right now. So pause this video now. Another tool to add to your toolbox, if it's not already overflowing, are the 11 goalpost strategies for family engagement. Laura talked earlier about where to start strategies and gave you some really concrete ways to get started, but yet here's another way that you could get started. Whatever month it is right now, start there. So if it's November, then you want to think about how can I improve my family conferences? We recommend calling them family conversations. How can I improve my family conversations and IEP meetings? Just start right there. There's tip sheets that you can download that accompany this training, and they were developed by the collaborative. So there's multiple voices and lenses in those tip sheets, and they're also based on research from Beyond the Bake Sale and Powerful Partnerships. These tip sheets, no more than 3 pages, some are just 1 page, outline for you some ways to do each of these strategies to improve family engagement. To get familiar with these tools, we're going to look at the August and September tip sheets. Teacher wellness and support, and that's really about understanding that teachers can't pour from an empty cup. So if our teachers don't feel supported and we're not modeling for them as leaders in our schools how to build relationships and support systems from leaders to teachers, it's going to be really hard for teachers to do that for families. So teacher wellness and support check-in is really geared toward building leadership. Welcoming phone calls or home visits for families. And there's some ideas for schools that are bigger and also middle and high schools there. Family-friendly back to school nights. Let's rethink how we go about a back to school night as our first introduction and welcome to families. So look, those tip sheets are linked, and on page 7, each of the 11 are linked to a strategy tip sheet. So you'll want to pull that up and download one tip sheet and record at the bottom of page 7 some ideas that you got from that tip sheet. So pause me now. Use it or lose it. I'm sure you're energized and motivated by all the great information that you learned today, but unfortunately, if you just sat and listened and maybe cheated a little bit and didn't fill out all of your reflection questions, then you'll probably only retain about 5 to 10% of what was presented today, maybe 20 if you watched all the videos all the way through. We'd really like to shoot for 75 to 90% of retaining what we taught today. So this is the time to take the next step in your learning. We told you, and we did, provide 10 tools today. You've got 2 video examples, the first one being what high engagement can look like in that first animated film. You've also heard from a parent of what family engagement, what kind of impact it had on her to build relationships with families. You've got some definitions and research highlights. We hear from a lot of educators and families that they know family engagement is important, but they have a hard time selling it or making the case. So those definitions and research highlights are really great for that. You've got DeHaab's story, which just printing off that story and having a handful of people read it can be really powerful and just a great discussion starter. 5 roles families can play. A lot of planning and next steps could be built around those 5 roles. You've got the where to start ideas. So maybe something really clicked for you there, or it led you down another path, and so you've got some great ideas of where you'd like to start. You could pick the month that you're in. 11 goalpost strategies. Pick your month and start there. You have 5 objectives for family and school engagement, especially if you're a school building leader. You can look at those 5 objectives, or if you're on some type of leadership council, those are really great ways to frame next steps for family engagement at the school. You've got your quick school self-reflection tool that could be used in all sorts of ways. If you're doing this live, you've got a new teammate and an action item already figured out. And 10, the Kentucky Family and School Partnership Self-Assessment. You have a link to that at the bottom of your learning packet. So what in the world can you do with all these tools? You could host a staff or grade level meeting and discuss one or a few of them. Family focus group materials. We talked about just hosting open and honest conversations with families just to get an idea of where you're at and where they'd like to go. You could partner with someone in your school. So pick your school buddy, your buddy at work, and say, hey, I took this really great training. I'm fired up. Let me tell you about this one idea I'd really like to do. Will you do it in your classroom and I'll do it in my classroom? And we can support each other. Never be afraid to start small and grow big. Sometimes the reason we don't make any progress is we try to take on too much at the beginning and we get frustrated and overwhelmed, and so we quit. So just start small, one other person and one tool from today. If you're a teacher or a parent, you can request a meeting with a school building leader and assistant principal or principal and say, I'd really like to share some key insights and ideas that I got from this training. You could take these materials to one of those school councils or PTA and suggest a subcommittee take on next steps for stronger family engagement at that school. Some of those councils and PTAs are just yearning for deeper and more meaningful work, and this is a great way for a handful of those members to dig into something new. We also suggest doing this training as a school team. So if you took this training just to see what it was all about, maybe forwarding the link to 3 or 4 other folks at your school and then setting a time in a week or 2 to get together and discuss what you want to do with the information. And of course, I'm sure you've got ideas of your own. So, you don't have to follow our examples. So on the bottom of page 8, use it or lose it. I want you to, before you end this training today, one thing, just your first action item, one thing that motivates you and gets you excited. Write down who could support you, who at your school could help you do this. Or maybe it's a family member or friend who you can just let them know that you're going to try this and they can support you. Who could you support? Maybe you're a rock star at family engagement, but you feel like this would be really great information for either a new teacher or someone else. So supporting them with this while you're trying something new too. We recommend getting that Outlook calendar out right now and block off an hour or however you keep your schedule, Outlook or planner, and go ahead and block off 1 hour next week and 1 hour the week after that to work on your family engagement ideas and next steps. So book it now. That's it. Thank you. You can contact me at brooke.gill@pritchardcommittee.org. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to our partners, SIPL and CFL, Learning Grove, Partners for Education, and KDE. You can find more information and trainings at pritchardcommittee.org/family engagement. Thanks for joining us today.